Welcome to another edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest along with Mike Lubie Lubitz, and happy to have you with us here on nofilter.net. It's always a pleasure to be with you. As a kid growing up in Brooklyn, New York, it was Clinton Avenue and Myrtle. I don't know if I can quantify the area, define the area. We considered it Bedford Stuyvesant. It wasn't necessarily a desirable place to be at the time, but it wasn't half bad, right? It's kind of an international, eclectic conundrum of different cultures, all rolled into one block. And we were always playing ball in the streets. It was just an absolutely great place to go and to grow up. We played all kinds of street games, every hybrid version of baseball you could imagine. And when we went to the movies, there was one movie theater there, Luby. It was the Peerless Theater.
Okay.
And it was right there on the corner of Clinton and Myrtle, just a little bit off to the side there under the Myrtle Avenue elevated train. And sure enough, we figured out a way to get into the projection booth. And I'll never forget this. And the big stud kid in our neighborhood was a guy I've mentioned before to you in other stories involving my childhood,
Yeah.
or my misguided youth, misspent youth. And Richie D'Angelo was the kid, and he orchestrated a move where we go to the Peerless Theater, a group of kids, and the place was packed. It was a Saturday afternoon matinee. It was real cheap to get in. The popcorn was reasonably priced. They weren't gouging your eyeballs out. You didn't need like a ski mask and a gun to go to the concession stands. And sure enough, he had found a way to roll a different movie into the projector. And so we were supposed to be seeing some surfing movie with like Annette Funicello, which everybody was going because, let's face it, she had some rather big memories. I don't know that we cared that she was, like hanging out in a Mickey Mouse club there. There was nothing Mickey Mouse about this woman in that regard. And so, to a 9-year-old kid, that was fascinating. But instead of showing the surfing movie, we found a way to slip into the projector Sweat Hog Sluts. So that plays for a few minutes before the theater manager realizes that he's been scammed by a bunch of kids and gets in there and he puts a stop to it really quickly. The movie tears in the projector and it takes a while there for them to finally load up the regular film while we're all laughing our asses off thinking, what a great spoof on everybody that was. Sweat Hog Sluts, one of my all-time favorites in terms of triple X rated movies. But I thought yesterday, and I don't know if you felt this way when I was watching the Miami Dolphins versus Carolina, that somehow they had slipped the wrong movie. I thought I was watching Sweat Hog Sluts all over again. And at the Peerless Theater, because Carolina goes up. Carolina, they can't give you enough points with Carolina to tempt me into betting the Carolina Panthers at any point this year until they start giving like 30 points a game.
Exactly.
The line makers. I mean, the line went off. I remember we actually told people we were right about something, Libby. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. We were right about something. We told people to jump on that line when it came out, 11 and a hook. The Dolphins over the Carolina Panthers at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. In the heat of the day, they were just going to fry the Panthers. So we're even down 14-0. Did you lose confidence? Where were you in terms of throwing in the towel, because you usually talk about Mel Brooks. I mean, you are a sports fan that is laced with high anxiety when you're watching your favorite teams perform. So were you feeling it's over? I mean, that this was when they were mailing in, or did you feel confident that they were just going to shake this off as if it was a joke, as if it was Nadal given some qualifier in the opening round of a tournament, one of the majors, one of the slams, just throwing in the first game and he's down 2-0 in the first set. And, there's no way that this is going to hold up. And that's kind of how I felt about it. And the Dolphins did turn it around and ended up winning the game with 6 touchdowns, 42-21. What did you make of that? Or did you think that you were watching some, film that got into the machine by the projector by mistake?
I thought they were sort of throwing it away. The play calling early on was freaking weird. Their defense has struggled early in games and it struggled again. Bryce Young, people are already calling him a bust, even though it's really not his fault. the Panthers defense hasn't been good, and they dominated the first quarter. It was like, what? And it was I'm like, is this in Carolina at least? Like, I'm like, okay, it's here and it's hot as hell today. I'm like, what is going on? I didn't throw it in the towel because his team is that talented, but it was just annoying and it was weird. But we saw that all day yesterday. Like all day yesterday was the better team playing down to the worst team all day long. And the Dolphins at least righted the ship in the second half. Everyone else did. Not everyone did.
Well, there were a couple of shockers yesterday. The Cleveland Browns with Milt Plum at quarterback. Who is their backup quarterback?
PJ Walker, the guy that stole the show in the USFL 2 years ago, the guy that's like 5'8". PJ Walker was the guy playing quarterback.
So they had kind of a carnival act in there at quarterback.
Yes.
And sure enough, they knock off the San Francisco 49ers, who had just been declared invincible. Brock Purdy was going to be the MVP of the league. Shanahan is a complete genius, eclipsing anything that we've seen from any other coach in the history. Holy Bill Walsh, this guy is the answer, my friends.
Yeah,
he is Joel Osteen, just going down there on the sideline and preaching the gospel to the 49ers, who have any number of massive weapons that they can call on. And sure enough, they are defeated. Not even against the spread. We're talking about straight up they lose to the Cleveland Browns, who have a good defense, according to everybody. But
great defensive line.
In terms of offense, you would have to say, we used to ask the question here in South Florida, who's more overrated or what is more overrated, Bryce Harper or the stone crab, which is a South Florida delicacy that it's very expensive, people, if you're buying it somewhere else, right?
It's expensive.
There's a Joe Stone Crabs in Las Vegas, but do you trust them, right? They have to be shipped frozen. It's not the same thing. These are right out of the water there. But you would have to say more overrated, Deshaun Watson or the Stone Crab.
At this point.
Especially when they're going for like, what, $79 a pound or whatever that is. I got some shell in my teeth. You probably felt that way if you had Philadelphia also against the New York Jets. That was the other monumental upset that took place on the NFL gridiron. But I wanted to get into bonehead coaching decisions because this is a business that thrives on analyzing and doing an autopsy on a coach's brain-dead decision that ultimately led to a loss. Now, we had a beauty, and I think the ultimate case, this will be the gold standard. If the Supreme Court was going to go ahead and cite a case as precedent, it would be Mario Cristobal failing to take a knee, University of Miami, chance to close out a game against lowly Georgia Tech, preserve their undefeated season, catapult themselves into a position where people are saying, hey, you know what? They might be back. And instead, I mean, should teams just hire a clock management endgame coach?
Yes.
To sit in a booth among the 30 other coaches that are assisting the head coach, who's getting paid millions and millions of dollars to make the most bonehead, bozoic decisions that you will ever witness.
Yes.
Now, this happened in the Giants game against the Buffalo Bills, which did not have like ugliness written all over it right from the start. The Bills are doing nothing. They get shut out in the first half of this ball game. You're thinking, wake up, you have to cover 15. So it's 6-0 with inside of a minute to go. The Giants have the ball, and via a penalty, they're now on the 1 fucking yard line. The 1 yard line, Lubie. They have a chance to probably throw a couple of passes, and if they don't complete those for a touchdown, then certainly they would opt for the field goal. And instead of being up 6-0, at least they're up 9-0.
Your favorite.
Now you're thinking,
scores.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 2-score game. So what is I mean, there are a couple of things that you can't do. One of which is get stopped short of the goal line with no timeouts left and 12 seconds to go by the time they run this play, 1st and goal from the 1.
Yep.
And they run the ball and get stuffed and never get off another play.
Oh
Brian Daboll, his face, I thought he was going to pass out. I really did. Did you see the expression on his face? He looked like Ric Flair staring down a masked wrestler who had just insulted his mother in the center of the ring. And he grabs the microphone with a big red face and goes, McMahon, you're going to pay for this. Tyrod Taylor was a quarterback. Now, how on earth does that happen? You have a dozen assistant coaches on each side of the ball, on each side of the equation, offense and defense,
Yeah.
and several others. I mean, I think even Jeff Van Gundy is a consultant to the Giants at
Yeah.
this point on play calling and clock management.
Mhm.
Dayball seemed like he was unaware that they were going to run the football. So, how does that happen, Lubia, in your opinion? And if it does,
Good.
who's accountable? I mean, don't heads have to roll? This should look like Don Carter Lane somewhere in Kendall, Florida, where, yeah, well, all of the top pros are in there for this one, and the top prize money is $5,000. Imagine these guys were bowling back in the 60s there, Chris Schenkel, Nelson Burton Jr., and the prize money was like 5 grand if you won the freaking tournament. That wasn't even enough to pay for the cigarettes and beer that
Exactly.
these guys were consuming during the match. It was crazy. But the bonehead decision, I mean, does it rank up there with
Oh yeah.
Mario Cristobal? It's not quite as catastrophic, but when you lose 14-9 in the end result, you
Mhm.
would have to say this was a chance for a team that was on the balls of its ass, the New York Giants. And after a very promising season a year ago, all of a sudden, they look like just absolute putrefied garbage. Yet they did manage to cover the point spread, which was good.
It's just
So you
it's
could
funny.
have
Like
had
that's
the
the reason you have a veteran backup. Like Tyrod Taylor's been in the league like I feel like 15 years, at least
yes.
10 years. Like why have a guy? You could have Zach Wilson be your quarterback then if you're gonna just have a guy make a stupid like even if he's audibling, how do you audible to to a run? Like what are you doing? Like
That would be the man's last audible he would ever call.
exactly.
I wouldn't, care if you had to resurrect Fran Tarkenton and put him back there. At least he would scramble around, but to hand the ball off and have the guy get stuffed was inexcusable.
You can't
Just
do that.
incredible how people could make bonehead mistakes at that level. But also equally incredible, and this is a local story that just popped up this morning before we took the airwaves here on nofilter.net. But what we have been touting throughout the end of the baseball season are lowly Miami Marlins. I mean, expectations zero point zero, my friend. Hardly of the Dickens variety. There are no great expectations for this team in any season. And yet somehow they scratched and clawed their way into a playoff position, albeit to get swept in 2 games by the red hot Philadelphia Phillies, who find themselves now in the
Yes,
league
yes.
championship round. So no disgrace there. They ran into a hot ball club at a time that they were struggling with various elements on their roster, but they were struggling all year long because they began the season with a bunch of bag ladies, Luby,
Yes.
baseball bag ladies.
Hmm.
And Kim Eng, the general manager, the only female general manager in any North American sport
Yes.
on the professional level, had done a marvelous job. I mean, absolutely Branch Rickey esque.
Yeah.
At the trade deadline, she looked like Red Auerbach all of a sudden, just raiding the Baltimore Bullets roster and saying, who can you give me? How about Monroe? We'll give you a couple of schleps, man. Wizardry. I mean, you had to have some real intuition and insight to pick up Jake Berger and Josh Bell at the trade deadline with the limited resources that the Marlins have and the fact that they're probably not going to pay anybody any enormous amount of money anytime real soon. So both of these guys become huge sparks and catalysts in the Marlins' success to run into the postseason. Any rise for optimism for the franchise. And I would think Kim Eng would be a very viable candidate. Would it be a shock if she was the executive of the year?
I mean, they were up. They were plus 13 in games won from year over year. She literally made moves that remade the entire roster and took a crappy offense and at least made it viable. To me, who was better? Yeah, the teams that are winning, well, they won last year. The Phillies are in the World Series. I guess the Diamondbacks, but did they make any moves? I think they just got better from within. I don't think they made moves. Like the Marlins were a 180, and it was almost all because of Kim.
Well, and she kind of replaced Derek Jeter, who was the biggest disaster as a sports executive this side of Mike Tannenbaum. Unbelievable. I mean, he literally buried the franchise, which is all the more reason. I know he's very popular and was a great player and demonstrated all of the things that you like about baseball, played the game with dignity and class, and always played hard, played to win, gave it everything that he had, was a catalyst in almost everything good that happened to the Yankees during most of his 15 years in pinstripes.
Yes.
and yet as an executive, a complete failure. So of course he would be the guy that Fox hires to be their baseball analyst. It'll take years to dig out, or so it would have seemed. Except Kim Eng managed to do that.
Yep.
And you said that it was a mutual parting of ways.
They're not even saying that. She said, "No, I'm good."
Declined her own option to
Yeah.
come back and be the general manager of the team again.
Yes.
What a disaster. I mean, finally something good happens to this franchise. It's incredible.
Yeah, she's
The
young.
stench of Jeffrey Loria and David Sampson finally is no longer hovering over the entire area of Miami and Dade County. And, which very strong resemblance to cow manure, that stench. And Kim Eng comes in here and seems to have everything going on the right track. And finally, springboard for some optimism about the franchise. And she says sayonara. No pun intended
Yes.
there. Let's hope we don't get taken down our number
Right.
with the, cancel culture. But she does literally say sayonara to the Marlins organization. A very strange story, my friends. Very strange story. All right, Brian Daboll takes the cake. Bozo move of the
Oh, the
weekend.
weekend. Yeah. For sure.
Totally out of control, this man. I mean, he was ready to just jump off the top rope and give his offensive coordinator an atomic skull crusher, a la Ric Flair. Woo! We have to make our exit as there'll be a Monday night game tonight. You have the Los Angeles Chargers hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys trying to rebound off that catastrophic loss that they had suffered at the hands of the 49ers, who subsequently turned right around and lose to a bunch of schleps.
Crappy
Holy
Browns.
Mill Plum. What the hell is going on out there? Incredible. All right. We'll see you next time. Next edition of the morning briefing from Mike Lubie Lubitz, who, by the way, Lubie, happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Happy birthday. How does it feel?
It feels like I'm old.
Yeah. My last birthday, what was wrapped up in a little box? I thought it was going to be some kind of piece of jewelry or something, which I don't need. I don't wear. It was a capsule with 6 Viagra. That was given by my wife.
This would be active.
I just grind the stuff up and snort it now. I mean, I don't even bother wasting any time pretending that, like, well, this might happen on its own. Forget about it. Give me Victor Conti, Dr. Galia. Give me anybody that can help.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next time. Next edition of the morning briefing from Mike Lubie Lubitz, the birthday boy. I'm Jeff DeForest, and always a pleasure being with you right here on NoFilter.net.